Welcome, everybody, to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and this is episode 275. This is our final mid-match discussion from the United Shooting Sports League's multi-gun traditional nationals. It's a good one here, and it's filled with tons of technical knowledge and even more anecdotal knowledge. It's stuff that you're going to have to test on your own, take out to the range, and see if it works for you. Adam Maxwell's back on the podcast, and we tackle a topic that we've been teasing for a few weeks now. You'll probably remember from 2 weeks ago. We've been planning this one for even longer. A subject near and dear to Adam's heart. As a former Minnesota boy, I present to you a guide to shotgun chokes for 3-gun. And like I said, an important topic here. You're going to get a lot out of this one, but only if you put the work in. And you're going to find out what I mean in just a minute. So before we do that, I mentioned a couple times in this podcast that I had not changed my choke out from an IC in the UML match, and I just wanted to clarify that on the last day I did use mod several times. So that may not make sense right now, but that'll make sense throughout the conversation, so keep that in mind. Now, before we get into the show, I want to thank so many of you for picking up a Born to 3-Gun t-shirt from the 3-Gun Show Pro Shop. That's right, Born to 3-Gun is back. If you've been hiding under a rock, Born to 3-Gun, the most popular design that we've ever put on a t-shirt, is back, and I'm loving all the pictures that y'all are posting on social media of coffee mugs, hoodies, t-shirts, all good stuff. But the coolest is the several of you that have picked up the Born to 3-Gun onesie for the little one in your life. I think that's really cool. So we have onesies available too. If you haven't picked up some Born to 3-Gun swag of your own, you can get yours at 3gunshowproshop.com. With Christmas coming up, you can definitely find something for the whole family at 3gunshowproshop.com. This podcast is brought to you by the good folks at JP Enterprises, the finest rifle components built by people that actually shoot the games you do. You do. It's not like they just hired a consultant and said, hey, what is 3-Gun like? Oh, they like brakes. Here you go. No. Blood, sweat, and tears, thousands of rounds downrange, traveling all across the country, shooting matches, and coming up with the best products for you. They don't sell gimmicks, just the most accurate and softest shooting rifles that anyone could ever want. And they do it with a smile. After years of buying select JP parts to finish off my own builds, I finally own a JP rifle, an LRP-07 and 6.5 Creedmoor, which is incredibly fun to shoot. And my 3-gun rifle is outfitted with a ton of JP stuff as well. If you want to build yourself a new 3-gun blaster in the off-season here, pick a cryo-treated super match barrel off of their website and all the other Go Fast parts from JP. If you're not into building and you just want to buy it now and be ready to race, JP's got you covered there as well. Either way, visit jprifles.com. And that's about all I've got for now. So enjoy this 90-minute podcast with Adam Maxwell and I talking about shotgun chokes, one small little piece of the puzzle of 3-gun. A choke is literally just a tube, but there's so much behind it, and you're about to learn it all.
Hey, Max, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Night 2, UML Traditional Nationals.
Yep.
Navasota, Texas. Shot 2 days of stages. Got one more to go.
Yep. Got 8 in the bag. I have 8 stages down, 3 to go. You have
6
down,
5 to go.
5 to go. In the Bay venues tomorrow for you. 3 more natural
All
trains
bays
for
tomorrow.
me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's going pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I shooting pretty conservatively at this one because the penalties hurt so bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
Dude, you cannot nail a no-shoot or miss a target in this match.
Right.
Because, so the
Hurts very much
this is
bad.
traditional rules for UML.
Mm-hmm.
EMG rules almost beg you to hit no-shoots and go fast.
Right. If you
Because
do that
the
here,
penalties are much lower. Exactly.
So yeah, definitely playing it. I don't know. I don't want to say really safe, but one of the things I am very self-conscious about for my own game, I'm the throwing penalties guy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the FTNs and nicking the perf on the no shoot, and I'm good for one FTE match at least. You know?
Dude, I fatigued a target at Red October Kalashnikov Championship.
Yeah.
That hurt so bad. I just blazed straight by it, and I took like I don't even know what it was, so this isn't like my actual stage time, but just an example. It was like a 32-second stage that turned into a 47-second stage
Yeah.
for a 15-second FTE. Like, damn, that was dumb.
Mm-hmm.
It was really bad. Which, in traditional, like, the stages are longer, so penalties are longer. But when you look at, like, percentage of your stage in a penalty, like, that's 50% of your stage is a penalty. Add 50% of your stage time to your time, that's your penalty. Like, that's rough.
That is rough.
Yeah, which is why a lot of people like the EMG rules.
Yeah, I think
Expedition
so.
multi-gun.
I mean, I think as we've seen, we were talking about a little bit about this on another show, but like I think we've seen kind of a generational change in the 3-gun crowd. I think this current generation is more interested in the EMG style of matches currently.
Like faster matches.
Fast speedball.
Well, and that's 3-gun Nation had lower penalties
right
for stuff too. It's like the clay target. Someone told me today, like, hey, if you miss a clay that's on a popper, 10 seconds, like, holy shit, that seems like a lot. Where I think 3-gun Nation cut that down to like 2.5 or something.
Yeah, they kind of let it off the leash a bit.
Yeah,
it's
that
like
I think is like too low.
It's go, you know?
Yeah, that one is like, well, do I even stand there and wait for it to present itself?
Yeah. So,
or do I just wing a round at it?
Yeah, but like in the traditional, what this rule set is trying to replicate or continue with, if folks want to. I mean, you used to have to hit it, or it had significant consequences. Flying clay here is 10 seconds.
Yeah. Well, and I almost think like an analogy can be made to like USPSA versus IDPA for traditional versus EMG. Whereas USPSA, a large emphasis is placed on speed. Like it's it's a combination of speed and accuracy, right? But speed definitely has a big proponent of the balance of speed and accuracy. Where in IDPA, it's like, it seems like it's all in how many points do you drop. So if you don't drop points, then so accuracy based.
Yeah.
So that's what I see as like traditional rules. Like it's a big penalty if you float past a target, or you wing a no shoot, or just throw one on that target, not in the A zone.
Yep. And it's fun to play both. Like I'm glad there's.
It's hard to switch back and forth.
It is, because it's a different mentality, but even though I feel like it's going away at this point, I hope it doesn't go all the way away.
Right.
Because I think as important diversity to have in the sport, as we start to see potentially like some matches start to get called out of the schedule, that just aren't making it. Like I would, I think natural terrain, traditional style scoring matches, I think there's a place for one or two of those.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think about a lot is Blue Ridge. And there's many reasons to go to Blue Ridge, and for the past couple of years, there's been some reasons that have kept me away from it. But one of the things I like about it is, the 8-round tube. It's like, hey, no, you can't have a goofy long tube, right? And then like Horner scoring, I don't particularly like, but that is a specific skill set that you need to practice if you're going to go shoot that match. So that is its own unique thing, and that is part of the character of that match.
I think it's hilarious that Horner scoring is just IDPA scoring with a different name.
I know.
People get super pissed if you say that.
Oh, you mean so like IDPA? No Horner scoring.
No, it's Horner scoring. It's totally different.
He invented it because there's a rifle on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. You're right. It is funny.
Same scoring using a USPSA target.
Also, there's so caps, capital area practical shooters. They like to, or they did a 3-gun match, but they like to do scoring like IDPA, like down 1, down 2.
Oh, yeah.
And
DMG, defensive multi-gun.
is that what it is?
Yes, when you want to take a quick side trip.
Wait, let me finish my finish my story real quick. I remember the first one I went to was the first one they swapped over to 2 anywhere.
Yeah.
And the range master, gave like a, oh, you multi-gunners gonna be happy with this one, and like, this is what scoring we're doing. And which is kind of fun because he made light of it and we all laughed, so it was good. But so yeah, what's defensive multi-gun?
Defensive multi-gun is when IDPA decided that they needed to get in on the 3-gun action.
Crazy.
When it was on its ascent in 2010 ish. I know that because that was the year I bought my first AR-15, and that was all happening at that time. So pretty confident on that date. But yeah, IDPA decided that they needed a multi-gun rule set and whatnot to accommodate their membership, and so they called it DMG, defensive multi-gun. Playing the same sport essentially with
So
AR-15.
you basically just start the buzzer, hide behind the couch, engage targets.
I mean, it wasn't that far off, and it in our area, it pretty quickly degenerated into 3-gun. It was just like we were an IDPA club, so we were calling it DMG, but Deltone had dissolved at that point, and really this was like the only outlet we had for it at the time. Minnesota 3-gun group wasn't a thing yet.
Ooh, really?
Or it was developing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
BM3GG, 4 Minnesota 3-gun group. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a local club in Austin that has, excuse me, I don't know what they call it, but it's a 2-gun match, and it's under IDPA rules. And I really think that's not for me.
I mean, it never took off, really. I think maybe I lost touch with that club.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they're still doing DMG or not. But as a whole, I mean, you're the 3-gun show, and this is the first you've heard of it, so
yeah,
it can't be that popular.
Well, I knew IDPA had a 3-gun thing. I didn't know it was called DMG. So,
but yeah, I forgot where we were going.
Yeah,
with that.
so yeah, I don't remember where we're going with that. Either.
I think that's
different rule sets and
yeah.
scoring. Yeah, okay. So anyway, this match shot 3 stages today, and I felt like I was getting in a groove. Like yesterday was kind of like Rocky,
Mm-hmm.
It was like down, up, down, and then today was like up, up, up.
Oh,
Yeah, so finished my 3rd stage on like a thing where like Lanny Basham style. You're like, that's like me. Like that is what. There we go. That's what Dave should shoot like.
Dave's on a crescendo.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Dave's flying high and didn't step in any cow shit today, which is awesome. And didn't go prone in any cow shit, which is awesome. And which is something you have to worry about this match because all the cattle are roaming around the range. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Especially when you're filming someone. Don't look through the camera here, folks. Watch your feet. Watch where you're going prone. I actually avoided going prone in cow poop and chose stickers instead that I was then picking out of me for like the next 30 minutes.
Oh, man.
But so anyway, so I finished on a good stage where it's like, okay, all the practice that I've been doing shooting on the move showed right here.
Mm-hmm.
And then loading on the move showed right here,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, like that one had like a really strict 180 line, so there was still some start and stops because I was walking faster than where the targets were coming. Whereas if it was like a traditional outlaw or terrain type thing, you could shoot backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a little bit of herky jerky, but it wasn't like enough, and I was like stuffing quads how I think I need to. I was shooting on the move how I think I need to. No makeup shots in the shotgun. Go to the pistol. It was actually pretty decent. So it was good. And then you know where this is going. And then we had to reshoot a stage. And that was unfortunate because it put us like another 2 hours on the range, which when you're doing like an 11-stage match. So I don't know how you are, but like in my head, I get like the schedule that I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like it's etched in stone in my head. And if I have to deviate from that, like it really rocks my world a little bit, you know? And that was one thing I really hated about 3-Gun Nation is that they would always change the schedule on you and bullshit for this. Like, oh, we didn't plan this, we didn't plan that, and so now we're going to change this. And it was always an email that came like 2 in the morning. So,
because you're checking your email at 7.
yeah, exactly. I'm not sleeping and trying to get a good night's sleep. But anyway, so we went and reshot that stage, and I actually improved my score on that stage by like 5 seconds. So I kind of have mixed feelings on that. Like I didn't want to reshoot that stage. Like our entire squad had to do it, except for one guy. And
Dylan.
Dylan. Just kidding.
Sorry, our bleeping isn't. We're not quite there yet.
Yeah, we don't have it.
Fingers on the
We're
trigger.
gonna figure that one out. But yeah. Anyway, so that one was bittersweet because of the entire squad. There were 2 guys that improved their time, and everyone else vastly unimproved their time. Like they went backwards. So the mood as we were leaving the range was not as high as it was after when we were done with the stage that we were supposed to be done with for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm trying to reset
Mm-hmm.
the brain, get, what's behind us is behind us. Let's move forward. Got 5 stages tomorrow. I haven't looked at. No idea what we're going to do, what we're going into.
Yeah, there's nothing scary over there.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah,
I
we'll see.
think you're on the downhill. It's all downhill from here, Dave.
We'll see. But anyway, that's the match update for me.
Yeah.
How'd your day go?
Pretty good. Like I said, we're shooting base stages today.
Did you shoot all 5?
Yeah, I shot all 5, and they're the kind of stages that they're fun. They're the kind of stages that I like to shoot, but it's kind of like you can roll up there and 15 minutes you're pretty comfortable with. We haven't really had a hard and fast 5 minutes, or I had a look at some of them before the match started, so I kind of knew already the broad strokes of what I was going to do, so I didn't feel rushed or anything. There weren't any really sneaky Pete, pardon the pun, targets.
Was that on purpose?
No, but it's just kind of their execution base stages.
Yep.
So felt good to get those down, and because we did 3 stages yesterday, which is kind of a light day. So like we had a full morning today.
I tell you what though, like 3 stages seems like a light day, but
Mhm.
once we put in that 4th, it seemed like a long day.
Right, and it's
Which
kind
is
of
weird because usually we do 4 and 4
yeah,
anyway.
like
It's
you're
not that big of
saying.
a deal.
I mean, I'll shoot all day if I that's not a big deal to me. But like usually when I do that, I have it in my head, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of you've prepared for it.
Yes.
And you also start managing something we don't talk about a whole lot, but you start managing your hydration and your nutrition.
Yes.
Ahead of time,
and the give a F, you have to manage those. Like I only have so many for the day.
Yeah.
And so if I feel like I've given all my emphasis and my energy to those stages, and I'm like, whew, thank God that's over. Now I can go and relax. Like my head's just clicked into like let's go take a nap mode.
Yeah. In sprint mode,
Yeah,
like
there you go, sprint mode.
in sprint mode, not eating as much.
Mm-hmm.
Still drinking, but not drinking water. But not as aggressively.
Yeah.
Maybe not like making as much of an effort to sit down.
Yes, sitting down is a huge one.
If I know I'm going to be out there all day, I like try to make get your weight off your feet just for
Right.
a little bit, because it adds up on the back end.
Yeah, we're talking about that today too. It's like even in a club match where it's going to be done at like 2 p.m. You're standing that entire time with your knees locked, and then it's like, okay, now get on the stage and be agile.
Right. When I was in retail, it wasn't that big of a deal.
But you didn't have to be agile.
Yeah. But yeah, you're at least used to being on your feet all the time. Now I'm not.
And like I don't particularly. I mean, same thing. Like I did retail for decade, maybe more, and then I worked in machine shop for 2.5 years, something like that. We're on our feet the entire day. If you were sitting down, you were in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is weird to think about getting in trouble as an adult.
I know, right?
Anyway, you were behind the curve. You know, you weren't being productive if you were sitting down. So yeah, you stand all the time. Now, I pretty much primarily have like a desk job.
Mm-hmm.
So it is more to stand for an entire day, but the mixing it up is the part that like I have trouble with. You know, it's like if we're gonna be, and that was like when back in the day when I would run obstacle races and stuff, you'd be on the course for 5 hours, but you knew you were going to be on the course for 5 hours. You prepared for that,
right?
And you're not standing. If you had to stand for 8 hours and then now go run that 13 miles, that would be tough because you've compressed all your lower extremities, your hips, your knees, and all that stuff. Locked your knees out the entire time. You're not moving. You're not agile. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a hashtag 3-gun problems right there.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know. I was excited with the stages we shot today. They were good. They were fun. We got to shoot across a body of water, which is always one of my favorites. So I liked them.
Yep.
Looking forward to the base tomorrow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Hey, Max, if you will. How many times have you switched chokes in this match?
A lot.
How many times has someone asked you what choke they should use in the match?
Oh, well, they don't necessarily ask me, but
do you hear people like just announcing it to the group, like what choke y'all going with?
Oh my God, we've kind of gone into the mode of like as the season's winding down, we're coming up with ideas of things to talk about on the show, to get through the winter. And this is one of the ideas that I wanted to talk about. And knowing that we were going to talk about this at some point, maybe I've just been paying attention.
Yeah,
there are so many golden one-liners on choke selection at this match. I'm so triggered right now. Like,
are they going to be good or bad?
Well, yeah. So, you're shooting that shorter barrel. So if he's shooting a mod, you're probably going to have to be like a light full to get the same pattern. What? What? No, that's not how. No. You should not give advice to anyone about anything because that's just stupid.
So recently I had Jay Christensen on the podcast, and I think that's one of the things that spurred this one. Other than we get this question a lot, but we were talking about our friends in Austin that have hoser and far chokes, right? And they are friends. So like. Darren is dude I train with a lot. Darren Spada. Garrison's a really good friend. I shoot with them. I cannot talk to them about chokes because we're speaking English and Dutch. That's weird. You said Dutch and I said duck.
I know, right?
Yep. Yeah, so they're speaking duck.
It's
because hoser is not a choke size. Neither is far.
Right. And it's kind of. You hear so much of it, and I feel kind of bad because I do get asked a lot about this kind of thing, especially with a lot of people transitioning over into open, me being fairly out of the closet on the short barrel, Vepers, and people are trying to decide the long barrels or the short barrels or the intermediate barrels, and what does that mean for choke selection? And we're like, well, yeah, so I mean, basically, you're like 2 sizes open or 2 sizes tighter than what the guys on the 19-inch barrels are shooting, right? I'm like, no. I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, it's not. And that's why I kind of wanted to talk about this because it's not linear.
You're saying there's no firm standard rule of thumb.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like and it was like that in back when I was in TAC too. Guys were like, well, you're shooting a 24-inch barrel, I'm shooting a 28-inch barrel, so I want to be like a size more open than you. Like, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
So
that one's like kind of a misnomer too.
Yeah, and even like even when we were talking about doing this podcast, I mean, you were kind of like, do you think there's enough to talk about for a full show? Like, we've kind of talked about that already. And I think it doesn't get the respect it deserves when people will talk at length about long-range shooting and BCs on bullets and 69 grain bullets versus 55 grain bullets and how many mils do you hold off for a 5 mile an hour wind. People who do all this math, the same people who use those 2 chokes.
Yeah.
They knew all this
point.
stuff about rifle shooting, but they have dumbed down shotgun patterning into 2 constrictions.
Yep. And I'll be honest, like, I tease those dudes for it, but I'm very close to the same way.
Not even saying that they're wrong.
No.
But that's not I pretty much had it boiled down to 2 chokes too most of the time.
Yeah. I have 3 chokes.
Yeah.
One of them is my threads.
Yes. But yeah, when I was shooting Benelli, I had basically 3 chokes. I carried 4. I carried a full just for the weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I basically had it boiled down to light mod most of the time. Diffusion when we were going to turn the hose loose on Pound Town and just let things go. And I had an IM for stuff that needed to be tighter, and it was hard to get an appreciable difference.
Of those chokes.
That was just what I arrived at,
So for me, like, I'm still using the factory chokes. I'm shooting the Stoker M3000 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because my other shotgun's not working. But so that particular one came with 3 chokes. It came with a
IC mod and full?
IC mod and turkey.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's aggressive.
Yeah, and the turkey is kind of weird. Like, it looks like, that turkey choke definitely came from Turkey because there's no sort of design elements. That's a pun for the Stoker crowd right there. But
oh shoot, I don't know what button it is.
But yeah, so at some point I was like, I'm not going to be using this turkey choke, so I just like discarded it. But you and I spoke recently. It's like, I think I need to go dig that thing up and pattern it just to see if it actually is a useful choke, or just get some normal chokes, which unfortunately, just not in the budget right now.
Yeah, right. I feel you, bud.
Yeah, but the so IC and mod is basically what I bounce back and forth in between, and then I joke about using the threads, but I think I use that maybe 1/2 time per year.
Yeah.
Like, I don't use it that often at all. Usually it's IC, and then if I got stuff far away to shoot, I'll go with a mod.
Yeah.
So I joke about my friends with the hoser and the FAR, but that's kind of the way I do it too. But those are my options. I do like having it narrowed down to a few options because then it removes paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
And one of my favorite jokes that I've said on the podcast before is light mod is for people who cannot make a decision. And you'll find people like with their IC or their improved cylinder or their modified choke, and they're thinking like, well, I don't think that's quite a mod, but I'm worried about the IC. I'll go with light mod, And that, for me, is like, that's a half measure. It's like, nope.
Right.
Is it far? Do you need to? And furthermore, the difference between a light mod and a mod is significant, but you can still hit that target with a mod by taking 1 extra microsecond to make sure that your shot is right on, or your bead is right on target.
Well, let's back it up a second here.
Let's do that.
So I want to get to all that. That's what I want to talk about.
Do you want to give like a definition of chokes and like what they do, like a little background?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually did research on this. You'd be proud of me.
Oh, love it.
So
I am proud.
Because I don't know everything about this. I don't even have a satisfactory understanding of what I want to know. But I do know what I need to know and what's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of our purpose for talking about this, for all you listening out there, is we start to talk about this stuff and you start to have questions. That means you have some homework to do on this type of stuff. So,
and if you come up with questions on this, it's a good thing.
Yes.
Because that means you're thinking critically through the topic.
Right. And that, like G.I. Joe said, knowledge is power.
Knowing is half the battle.
Yes. So thanks, Joe. So, in the world of ballistics, there is internal ballistics. That's everything that happens before the projectile leaves the muzzle.
Right.
Right? That's primers, powder, burn rates, velocities. things like that. There's external ballistics. That's everything for the payload flying from the muzzle to the target. And then there's terminal ballistics, what happens when it hits. Okay? Chokes, for the most part, we're talking about external ballistics. Okay, so when we pull the trigger on our favorite scatter blaster, we light the propellant, and the chemical reaction starts and builds pressure, and it starts forcing the shot column out the barrel.
Right.
So what you have is a shot payload, or a slug, but you have a payload.
Yeah, I guess we should stick to birdshot for this part, this portion.
Yep, but you have a payload in a wad, essentially. The wad.
And a wad is a plastic thing that basically is just making that payload stay in the same place.
Yeah, and it's a gas
it
seal.
together.
It's the gas seal,
Yes.
and then it's also holding that
Gas
shot
seal for
column
what?
For the burning propellant behind.
Right. So
So
the gas doesn't go forward in front of the pellets,
right,
or the birdshot.
right.
It stays behind it and gives all that energy
Yep.
to the advancement of that
Yep.
payload.
Yep, you're lighting the powder, creating rapidly expanding gas pressure. Path of least resistance for that gas pressure to escape the chamber is to push the shot column out the end of the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
So when that starts to happen, your wad is moving down, and it's all moving as one. Picture it as you sitting inside your car. If you were the payload, the wad is your car.
Ooh.
Okay? Flying down. Yeah.
But it's like a 15-passenger van because it holds a lot of people.
Yeah, right. More like a tour bus.
Tour bus.
But what happens? So when we're talking about chokes, we get to the end of the barrel and we have a constriction of some kind, very minute differences. But that constriction,
Thousandths of an inch.
Yeah. We're talking about essentially how the wad is going to get squeezed before we release it into the atmosphere. Because
And so when you say constriction, so like our choke, and if you've ever pulled your choke out of your shotgun, it's like 2 inches long, 3 inches long, maybe 4 inches long or something like that. So that constriction goes, the number on that choke that says like whatever the diameter is more narrow than your barrel. So at some point in the choke itself, it's forcing the wad and the payload to be closer to each other, compacting it, right?
yes, because if you ever looked at a wad, on the range or whatnot, you'll notice that it's kind of got a base to it, and then it's got some petals to the side that kind of open up like wings or a parachute almost,
Or like a flower blooms. That's
like a flower.
Like
Yes.
why you called it petals.
Yes. So what it does essentially is when the wad falls away from the shot column because it is exponentially lighter, and then when it opens up, it has more drag. So it essentially falls away from the shot column. That is when your pellets start spreading. So what the choke...
So they start spreading outside of the barrel.
Yes. When the wad falls away from the shot column, that is when the pellets start spreading. What the choke does is influences when the wad is going to fall away from the shot column. And that is dictated by that final squeeze before it exits the muzzle. So what we're doing with chokes is we're influencing when the wad is going to fall away. And then that's when the pellets start to spread. And that's why when you're shooting super close, your patterns are pretty similar. It's because the wad hasn't fallen away yet.
Right.
So that's what we're doing. We are timing, kind of like an air burst, in military ordnance. We're timing when that's going to fall away to have the desired pattern.
It's just like a firework. Like if you're at 4th of July and you see like a rocket go up in the air, you can see it trailing, and then at some point it goes kaboom and it explodes, and all the other little embers go in different directions, colorful directions.
Some go higher than others.
Exactly. There's not an explosion in a shotgun to make it go that direction, but the constriction is what does that. And then the wad falling away.
And then again, like a diffusion choke, what makes that choke unique is it's rifled, so it spins the wad, so the wad falls away even faster.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. Like I've seen a lot of people look through a diffusion choke and they're like, "Wow, so it spins the shot?" No, it spins the wad.
Right.
And then the wad opens up and the payload is spinning at the same
Yeah.
time, and that's why it looks like that spinny pattern when you pattern it on a target.
Yep. That's like if you have a cup of coffee and you're going to dump it on the ground, or if you're going to whip it at somebody.
Ooh.
Like that's the difference. Like you could just dump it out, or if you get some velocity, if you whip it, then that spreads.
Yeah, like a rainbow.
Like a rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, choking has been done in shotguns for a long, long time in wing shooting, right? Most of the conventional knowledge around chokes and patterning come from wing shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So in wing shooting, they're trying to essentially have approximately, depending on what school of thought you're in, they're approximately trying to have a 30-inch pattern at whatever distance they're trying to shoot their target at.
Interesting.
So
when you talk about wing shooting, you're talking about like live birds.
Yep.
So I don't know exactly what it takes to take down a bird, and perhaps it's like different from bird to bird.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I read one time is that 2 pellets will break a clay.
Mm-hmm.
So any 2 pellets. So when you're talking about a 30-inch dispersion and
Mm-hmm.
you're shooting, it's like clay pigeons flying through the air.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're aiming for. It's
Yep.
not like a bullet or a projectile where you're aiming for the center of that thing.
Right.
You're giving it a spread to fly into.
Yep. You're essentially trying to throw a beach ball at a clay,
There you go.
and you're trying to have this dense 30-inch pattern at whatever distance you want it to be at. In a game like Skeet, where you're within 10, 15 yards, sometimes less of the target, you want that pattern pretty close to you. If you're shooting trap or duck towers, I don't know how popular duck towers are in other parts of the country.
Sporting clays.
Yeah, but sporting clays, duck towers, essentially, they have a clay machine way up high on a tower, and it throws a long crossing shot. Like a
They
duck
have those
flying
in
over.
sporting clays for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of a sporting. I'm not sure if it's unique to the Midwest. So,
Mm.
but anyway, that target is significantly further away.
Right.
That target's 30 yards away, 40 yards away,
Mhm.
maybe. So we want that same 30-inch pattern to develop much further away from us, and that's where,
And so that's tighter choke.
that's where chokes came from. Is because they're trying to control where that 30-inch pattern is, and they want good, dense coverage of that 30-inch circle.
Right.
Ideally, you would want your whole shot payload to be in there. And some of how they define what different chokes are is they shoot said circle at that distance. They count how many pellet holes are
yeah.
in that, and then they compare that with the known payload of that shell.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So the when you're talking about properly choking, it gets way more complicated when you don't shoot the same shotgun shell all the time.
right.
They didn't have 7.5, so I'm going to go with 8s. That's way different.
Yep. They
Yep.
didn't have Federals, so I'm buying Winchesters.
Yeah.
Completely different wad.
They didn't also stay in the same line. They didn't have like the Federal bulk pack at Walmart, so I picked up the Grands, the Federal Grands. You know,
Yep.
the new one that everyone's really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Those are completely different.
Yep.
You know, I have Dove load. Well, that's 7.5, 2 3/4 inch, just like this Skeet load.
Yep.
Is that the same thing?
I usually shoot 1165s, but they only had 1350s
Yes.
velocity.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a good point. Like in my squad, there are 5 of us shooting gray Winchester AA's.
Mm-hmm.
They're all different,
Yes.
and like I'm just put them. If someone gives me something off the ground, I'm just putting it in my range, my practice bin in the back
Right.
of my truck.
Not to say that these are necessarily like dangerous to shoot.
No.
But external ballistics, maybe
Consistency.
maybe a negligible difference, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay, and
then
then
I paid a lot of money to be here, so I want to be sure of what I'm
right,
shooting. you know?
right, and so, but backing up, so wing shooting, that's where the patterning came from. Most of what's known about patterning is in that context. Now, and then we're talking about in the world of tactical shotguns, they're trying to get 9 pellet buckshot into a human torso.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's this big gap between tactical shotguns and wing shooting and what we're doing.
Right.
Because we're shooting targets at a greater variety of distances. We're not trying to get two pellets on a clay. We're trying to push a piece of steel over or knock something down, activate something. Usually it's steel, or clay or, whatever. But we're trying to do something much different than incapacitate a bird or break a clay. And we're doing it at variable distances, and we may be doing it in proximity to a penalty target.
Yes.
So now we're not just trying to manipulate where that 30-inch circle is. We need to know at what rate the shot column is going to spread with each choke at varying distances, at every distance. From the we want to know what that shell or what that shot column is going to do with that choke, appreciably in 5-yard increments out to 35 yards. And then we want to know that with each choke. And then, we want to know, subtleties within them.
Right.
So, because we want to, depending on what the target is, a clay only takes the golden BB to neutralize the target. But if that same at that same distance, it takes, at least a dozen pellets probably to push over a significant piece of steel.
Right.
So
yes, but and then is the popper set hard? Is the popper set light?
Right.
Is it a knockdown? Is the pedestal that the knockdown is on small or big? Those are all things you have to take into account
right.
when you're selecting a choke.
Does the rule set that you're playing credit you with a spin?
Yes.
45-degree spin.
Yes.
Does that count? Is the plate sitting at an angle? Is the strike face that you're going to hit that plate at, is it going to get an energy transfer, or is it angled and it's going to glance off?
Do I have a full presentation? Is it facing me? Or do I have a partial presentation like it's bladed away from me? So I'm going to be only putting part of my pattern on that from where I'm shooting it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
a lot to think about.
So when you start to figure these things out, it's fairly easy to do, but it takes time, and you got to do it. But essentially, what you need to do to fully understand this with your gun and your loads is you need to shoot each choke at each distance on a big sheet of paper, like butcher paper.
Can I give you an alternate way to do this?
Yes.
So one Kevin Travis, who used to run the Colorado Third-Gun Championship, took me out to show me how he went through his chokes, and he put out a popper, and it was full-size popper, a knockdown, so basically like an 8-inch steel on a pedestal, a static clay, and then that first popper had a toaster on it. So those are 4 rounds. And so you put in whatever choke, and you go to 7 yards, 10 yards, whatever it is. Boom, clay. Okay, so I got the clay. I got the popper. It was hard to hit that clay because I had to aim really hard on it. It was easy to hit that clay because I didn't have to aim hard on it because my pattern's bigger, whatever. Observe, write this down in your journal. Then shoot the knockdown. Does it fall? Shoot the other static clay. Does it break? Reset it back up. Reset it back up. Reset it back up. And then repeat that with each choke. And so those are similar targets to what we're going to see in matches. So you know what it does to a flyer, a flyer, a tosser, right? Toaster. You know what it does to a popper. You know what it does to a knockdown. You know what it does to a static clay. And it's weird because as you do it, as you back up and find the limit of your pattern, you'll notice okay, popper didn't go down. Knockdown almost didn't want to go down, but it went down. Clay busted. Take another step back. Popper didn't go down. Knockdown didn't go down. Clay busted. Take another step back. That kind of thing. So that part of it is kind of tedious, and I think what you're about to describe is what I would do first.
Right.
because then have a baseline of where to start with.
Yes. But what you're describing is actually probably how most people in our sport learn this. They learn it's all anecdotal.
I think most people learn it from shooting stages and screwing up.
And essentially what you did was recreate 4 key, environments that you would take a shotgun shot in and saw what would happen, right? So, but where I take issue with that because I've heard that kind of things like that before. But you only know how that popper is going to fall over on that day, set the way you set it. So eventually you need to translate this information over into what you're describing. You need to understand that I need quite a bit of pattern to knock that over, or at this distance it doesn't take a whole lot.
Sure.
So
this reminds me of some advice I gave today. Like there was someone that was asking me about the spinner. Well, how do I shoot the spinner? And it's like, well, buddy, how much time do you have?
Yeah.
And we were talking about specifically rifle, so we were talking about 75 grain versus 77 grain versus 69 grain, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Where to shoot it, how many times to shoot it, that stuff. And I was telling him, like, when you were shooting it, you were shooting the back, hoping to push it over, but you were trying to push it against gravity, and you can't do that.
Yeah, over center.
Yeah, so I recommended one of the things that he do is just look at the spinner from as many different angles as you can while someone else is shooting it, and just watch what it does and how it reacts.
Yep.
It hit here, this is how it reacted. It hit there, this is how it reacted. And you can do that with, I wouldn't recommend doing this with someone other than your buddy, because then you'd have to ask everyone, what choke was that? What load was that? What shell was that? That kind of thing.
Yep.
But if you observe your own shooting, and club matches are low investment places to do it, watch. Did that popper fall over, or did I drive it over? Did it just go down?
Yeah.
Or was it was it set hard? Was it set soft?
Yeah.
Observe everything about it. Like, is that popper facing me? Is it set hard? Is it set soft? Is it a full size popper? Is it a mini popper? Did it go down with force? Did I have to put a second shot on it to encourage it to go down? Look at everything.
And when they hit it, what did it look like? Did it look like a big gray cloud of dust that hit it? Or was it just a few specks and it fell over? Because, you can get a few pellets on it and knock it over, or you can hit it with a full column and you can tell the difference, but you have to be watching when they hit it, and you can see. And then from there, you can apply what we're about to talk to into when you look at a target, be like, okay, I want the gray cloud when I shoot that.
Yes.
Or that's really close. I only need to hit that with a few pellets.
And it's a clay.
And it's a clay.
And that's one of the things, I take heat all the time for hating PCC, which I don't actually hate PCC. I dislike it in 3-gun because it changes the stage design. And static clays are traditionally something we shoot in 3-gun. Yes, they're expensive from a match management standpoint, totally understand, but they are something that are enjoyable to shoot, and it is a target appropriate for the shotgun. The reason I like clays is you can shoot those from almost anywhere on the stage.
Yep.
And I love that. I think it's so cool. It's like, I could save myself a whole other position if I just, line up these two clays right here and
just dust it from here.
Just shoot in the middle of them.
So when we pattern a shotgun, we're looking for when I shoot, you need that's the other thing too, is kind of like one of the other ways people have described patterns to me before. They shot a piece of steel and they showed me here's what it looks like on a piece of steel. Here's a 10-inch plate. That's what it looks like.
Adam's holding his palm up, and that's great. Your 10-inch plate tells the story, but it's only part of the story.
That's completely anecdotal. So that's cool. Cool story, bro.
And it's part of the story.
Right.
You don't even have an idea of the full pattern.
Yeah, it's not the story.
Right.
What I'm looking for is the story, so that I can, the full data set, so I can apply it to a context. So what we do is we shoot the paper at all these distances, right? So you go out and do
big white
shooting.
butcher paper is what you're talking about.
Yep, biggest piece you can find, because you want to get as many of the pellets as you can. And then I take all that back, and then I draw a circle. I'm looking for 2 different measurements out of the same pattern. I'm looking for what I would call absolute diameter, and then we could call it effective diameter.
Okay.
So absolute diameter is, and you have to approximate here a little bit because you're going to have flyers on the outside. So but how big is that pattern? Essentially, what gap could I shoot this pattern through and not hit either side? If you had hard cover on both sides and you wanted to get all your pellets through, how big is that? So just an absolute corner to corner, whatever the best approximation is for that distance. At close distances, that's going to be your effective pattern as well. Effective pattern, to me, is the pattern that is dense enough to not have clay-sized holes in it.
Okay.
Because at some point, you're going to have your pellets spread to the point where you're going to have holes in your pattern.
Yeah, so you can kind of take like the expansion of the shot as like a cone, right?
Yes.
So it starts out very small when it leaves your barrel.
Yes.
Almost 0.74 inches in diameter.
Yes.
And then once you get 30, 40, 50 yards away,
yes,
it's gone so big that, a coyote could stand in between.
Right. So essentially you could call and press the perfect shot, on a trigger pull, but you could have a target find a void in your pattern and not get hit.
Yes.
So,
trust me, I've done it.
Yes. So what I'm looking for when I build a dope sheet for a gun, I'm looking for how big is that pattern in the sense of like if I have an array of clays, like how big of a pattern do I have if I'm trying to get doubles, or if we're trying to get a little sloppy in our sight picture, doing the flash sight picture like the Pro Series clay races.
Yeah, those were like diffusion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I want to know at the same time, where am I going to start to have these holes so that if I need to lay some pellets, some density on something, I want to know what that is too. So essentially that tells me how wide I am for a spray type effect, and then I want to know how constricted I can be if I'm trying to sneak past things that I don't want to hit. Because there are matches where, and in the past, I remember very specifically some matches in the early days where they had targets between two very prominent and valuable nose shoots, and the gap was like 18 inches. So the gap was 18 inches, and it was 15 yards away. I would go back and look at my sheet. It's like, well, for light mod, my pattern is going to be 16 inches at that distance. I need to choke up because I need more control and more control over my pellets to not veer to either side and hit those nose shoots. So that's what we're looking for in patterning. I want to know how big it is, absolute size, and then effective size, where targets can't hide in my pattern and not be affected. Especially smaller targets, like here there's those 3x3 hexes.
I forgot about those.
Yeah, you clip one of those with just one pellet, it's just gonna spin.
Yeah,
maybe.
Luckily, this is a match where they'll call a hit on a spin.
Yeah, and these in particular, they have a base that's as big as the strike face, and it's sitting on a big pedestal. So
I want to shoot those with a mod. Just send them flying.
You want to shoot those with a full.
Really?
They gave a lot of people problems.
Interesting. Okay, good to know.
So that's what we're looking for in patterning. Now, if we go back again, we go back to the big manufacturers: Federal, Winchester, Remington, Fiyoshi. They're making shot shells for wing shooters, for sporting clays, for skeet, for trap, for hunting applications. They are they're building them to be shot out of field length barrels.
Right.
I think I don't know the exact number of what the proof barrel length is, but I'm betting it's 30 inches or longer.
That would make sense. So what's proof barrel?
So like that's the Sammy spec.
Right. What's Sammy?
That's the
I don't quite know what it stands for.
But it's the standardizing body for ammunition.
Yeah,
it's
the specification. Yeah, exactly. So it's like ANSI or SAE would
Yeah.
be for engineering or for automotive. But
Yep. They're the ones that say a 12-gauge load can't produce more than this pressure.
yes,
And it must be of this size and things of that nature.
and similar to that is something that we talk about a lot in long range shooting or in rifle shooting. Period is don't trust the velocity that's on the box,
Right.
because you don't know what the proof barrel was.
Right.
And
You do, but it's probably longer than yours.
well, you have to look it up. It doesn't actually
Yes.
say it on there.
Correct.
And it will be longer than yours because I don't know anyone that shoots like a 22-inch bull barrel in 3-gun.
Exactly.
So we're
So
all
your
shooting
velocity is
16
going
or
to be
18.
something less than that.
Exactly. Just like with the shotgun. So one of the great things about having those silly long magazine tubes that we have on our shotguns
Mm-hmm.
is that now it's like nobody cares about barrel length. So it used to be like you'd want the shortest barrel length or whatever.
Right.
Guys were like even experimenting with 18-inch barrels. Don't do it at home, kids. You will be upset. But
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
it did, and it was not. Appropriate use. So the first shotgun that I had was a JM Pro's Tactical Division, and it was actually made at the time for the purveying rule sets, 22 inches long, and a magazine tube that met the barrel length. Right.
Mm-hmm.
My Stoker's 24 inches. My Breda, I want to say my Breda's 24 also. Sounds about right.
Maybe
But
26.
Maybe 26. It's probably you're probably right. It's probably 26. But now like getting off the shelf shotgun because you don't have to buy the air quotes tactical one for 3-gun. We're looking at barrel lengths that are more on the 26-inch side.
Yep. And so the closer you are to probably 26 or certainly 28 or 30 inches, you're probably closer to what that advertised velocity or that intended velocity is going to be.
And that's not to say that we recommend those barrel sizes.
Nope.
It's
But
just, that is a fact.
But as a major ammunition manufacturer, when they designed that wad to perform at that velocity.
Mm-hmm.
As we start reducing barrel length, we are losing velocity to the tune, I believe, of 70 feet per second per inch, roughly.
That's a lot.
We could just use that as like a frame of reference, even if it's not technically correct.
And it's going to depend on shotgun to shotgun and elevation to elevation, temperature to temperature.
Yep. But essentially, so you're shooting, as we are using shorter length barrels for the application of our sport, we're also reducing the velocity that wad is actually going to fly into the atmosphere at, which affects how it falls away from the shot column.
Mm-hmm.
Not as big of a deal in TAC optics, but when we started crossing over into, or when I started crossing over into open, right now we're talking about 19-inch barrels,
Right.
16-inch barrels, 14-inch barrels. And that's where when
I shot Distant Arms SOB,
yeah,
8-inch barrel.
8-inch barrel.
Shot that at Red October. It was awesome.
Yep. Probably not patterning super awesome, though.
No.
Not at 35 yards, probably.
No, I think we were shooting at like 8 or 9 yards or something like that.
Yeah. So when folks ask, well, so open guys, they're about a size tighter, they're about a size this or size that. Well, that's because the wad is falling away at a different time than it is on a conventional size shotgun. And what I found and what I need to do more research on, but, like everybody, there's time and resources, right? So, but what I found in my initial testing of the short barrel shotgun, or the shorter barrel, my shotgun's a legal length, is that I would have a very dense core. It's about 9 inches when I measured it. With different chokes, different distances, I got about a 9-inch core that's very angry.
So that's your effective?
Yeah, my
pattern?
effective pattern. Pretty immune to distance, for sake of conversation.
Really?
But the variable is how many flyers do I have around the outside edges?
Right.
With more open chokes, I have more pellets on that periphery in my absolute pattern. They're not evenly spread.
Mm-hmm.
Anecdotally, when I tested it with one shell on one day. So when folks would ask me, well, so and when I inquired with other shooters who were shooting longer barrel, they hadn't really seen this, or I questioned if they'd actually done their homework on this. But it was kind of like, so I'm not necessarily going to say that, yeah, you can pretty much 1-for-1 be a size tighter than somebody with the longer barrel vepr and you're good to go, because it's not necessarily the same. Because I might have a pattern of a different size, but if I effectively shot a Charlie hit on a target, I'm hitting with the edge of the pattern,
right?
And that part of my pattern might not have enough pellets to do what I want to do. And that's the difference when folks started talking about, the different chokes applied to our sport. It's, well, what does your pattern look like? How much of it do you need? And, is the edge of your pattern going to be just as effective as the middle of your pattern? Do you need to press a perfect shot in the middle to get the angry part of your pattern? Or is a 2 delta type situation where you shoot it as you're kind of swinging by, is the number of pellets you hit it with somewhat irrelevant?
And so I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a method of checking your pattern that I've heard discussed before. I think the first time I heard this was from Mark Passamatic, like way back in the day when I first started.
Sounds like something you'd talk about.
Yeah, but the idea was take your shotgun bead and put it in the center of the target, knock the target down. Now put it on the right edge of the target, knock it down. Now put it another bead length off of the target. Does it knock down? Now put it another bead width off the target. Does it knock down? And then keep doing that until it doesn't. And so that's another, anecdotal thing. That's another test you can do to see how sloppy can I be with my shotgun. I've never done that, and I aim hard at everything.
Right. But when you look at some of these array, and especially in open, you guys see somebody just crush an array of stuff that's really close together. That person probably either consciously or subconsciously knew their pattern was big enough that they didn't have to see, because, marksmanship 101 in our sport, you need to give the target exactly what it needs, no more, no less.
Acceptable sight picture.
Yep, acceptable sight picture, because 2 inside the perf scores the same as 2 stacked on top of each other, right?
Well,
but one takes more time.
It's crazy now I think about that, because Ryan Kleckner talks about acceptable sight picture all the time in his instructions, and I took a lot away from that one. And I've now done, like, if there's a hanging BC zone, I don't care if my rifle's in the center of that target. If it's on the right edge or the bottom, I'll pull the trigger, because I'm going to get a hit.
And the time it takes somebody else to drive it to the center is time that's pushing you forward.
However, for 8 years now, I've been doing that with my shotgun. Oh, I need to get to the lab.
See? And now here's, so the power of the shotgun. And this is where, when people say things like, I have near, close, and far, or whatever the chokes are.
It's hoser and far.
Hoser and far. Like, those are the only 2 chokes you need. Like, maybe it'll get you by. Shooting for the center will get you by too.
Well, and so maybe, so if you don't have time to pattern all this, you don't know what choke you have, aim for the center, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I'm hampering myself with using an IC, like it's way too tight for what I need.
Right.
Or, I mean, this is all stuff I'd have to do. Go figure out, like, well, how sloppy can I be with that IC?
Yeah. Most of this is not information you need to play 3-gun. This is, however, information that's very powerful if you know it and you know how to use it.
It's like a small little leg up, right?
It's a force multiplier.
Ooh, force multiplier.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Use one of them military terms.
I was gonna say, did that real tall guy teach you that one?
No.
Steve?
No. No. Fisher didn't teach me that. He taught me a lot of other stuff, but not that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and that's where, like, the classic one that I always kind of shake my head as, well, IC should be okay, right? It's like, Yeah, probably. But you're probably selling yourself short. And, people who don't bring at least a couple different chokes and some understanding of what they do and maybe played around with them a little bit to start to get a grasp on some of these things that we're talking about, you're selling yourself short.
Right.
It's when we were talking about this in another podcast too, for marksmanship versus athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
This is a place where, especially if you're kind of fancy yourself on like the not athletic side of the spectrum,
like the thinker side.
Yeah, this is where these are things that you don't have to be an athlete to wield this power. You just need to know it, and then this is maybe a strength that you can use to offset a weakness that you have. If you're not fast enough to run 15 yards, downrange to get close to a target, you might be able to have the presence of mind and confidence be like, no, I know that with this choke, I can knock that over from 35 yards away with a shotgun. I can't tell you how many times I have been like planning to shoot something with a shotgun, and I've heard people walk in the stage and be like, oh, that's way too far to shoot with a shotgun.
Oh, yeah.
And I just like, well, watch this, dudes. And so I've stepped up, planted my feet, took the shot, knocked it over, and then they felt super silly for running, because guess what? The pellets run faster than I do.
Yeah.
That
reminds me, Three Gun Nation Hurricane Nationals.
I think that's one of the places I did it.
Our first time that we met.
Yeah.
That was, my Stoger was new at that point. Like, I'd just gotten it from RCI.
Mm-hmm.
I think I shot one other match with it, which was, no, that might have been the first place I shot it.
Mm-hmm.
But Mark Roth told me, like, hey, if you have, we cut the port, and then otherwise, and we'll put in the X tube, monotube. We do the sights and all that. Other than that, function is how it comes from Stoger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some rough edges because it is a Turkish shotgun. It's a low price point. If you have time, take it apart, Dremel it, polish it, all this stuff. Don't have time, shoot 1300s through it, and it'll work it in over like a case, right? So I wasn't through that case by the time I got to Three Gun Nation Nationals. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to shoot 1300s in the match. So, and that was before I really thought anything about chokes or anything. So I shot what was in there. Turns out, like, they're bird guns. They're sold to bird hunters. There's a mod choke in there. And so I'm shooting 1350s, I think is what I was able to find. So I was shooting 1350s with a mod choke. And I was winging shit like no one's business. Like, those KDs were going, wah, like off into the bushes.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one clay that one target they tried to say that I didn't shoot. And they're like, well, you stopped, 18 yards before everyone else did. And I was like, yeah. And like, well, it must not have been reset because you didn't shoot it. And like, well, I shot it. Like, where'd you shoot it from? I'm like, over there. I pointed like, well, you can see it from over there. And like, well, how did you shoot it from over here? I'm like, I put the bead on it. I pulled the trigger. Like, I wasn't understanding like where they were going with it. And then once I started watching everyone else, I noticed like, most people were shooting like 1145s, 1200s or whatever it was. And so everyone had to get like much, much closer. And I was like, oh, there's a superpower in not being a pussy when you select your shotgun shells.
Yeah.
So like, you don't need the 1145s. If you can run 1250s and be okay, go for it.
Yeah. No, I remember some of those stages were you at the Tulsa? Yeah, you were at the Tulsa Nationals.
I was there. I didn't shoot it.
Yeah. There was a couple there where we did. At the time, I was traveling a lot with Chris Ozin and Jake Latola. And so we would look at something and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna put the IM choke in. We shoot it from over here, but like whoever the first one of us would do that, we'd square off on that thing, shoot with a shotgun. And I remember a few times hearing in my earphones, people were like, "What the?" I was just like, "Yep." How you like me now?
I like me now.
Yeah. But, knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So anything else you want to mention on chokes? Because I kind of want to talk about loads real quick.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I prefer to choke for a target.
Mm-hmm.
There are some cases though where I've went and bought like the Remington Express long range. I think is what they're called from like the big $25 or 25 pack from Walmart.
Them high bases.
Yeah, exactly. And they are 7.5s or 8s.
Mm-hmm.
They completely fall within all the rule sets that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But they got a little extra oomph. And if there's like one target on a stage and I have a place to load it in, and it's not going to be like a weird candy cane where it's going to mess with my mind, I'll just stuff that little guy in there, and then take that down. One target, 2 targets, or something like that. If it gets to be like, okay, well this is just be too much brain damage, then I'll switch to like a mod choke, because a lot of times, so the rule of thumb is like choke for the hardest target on the stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you know your chokes and you know your patterns, especially with those specialty loads like that, and use the same specialty load, you can kind of skirt around that for that one target.
Yep.
And then use a more open choke for the rest of the stage. Good example is Vortex Shooter Source. They're a real big fan of jungle runs, which are awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one year, Jeremy put like these bowling pin things, which were stinking heavy targets.
Oh, those suck so bad.
Those are heavy. And
they got a big lip on them too.
Got a big lip. They're heavy. And he put 2 that were like unreasonably far away. Air quote, unreasonably far away. Where people were like, well, I don't know, I don't even know if I can hit that from here, that kind of thing. And then there's a dump barrel, so you couldn't advance past that. And so my pal Chad and I went and got those express ones from the Walmart, and sure enough, it was like boom, boom, and then just ditch, and they were gone. And so that's been like another specialty arrow in my quiver. Like I'll travel with half a box of those or so. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is what we were talking about earlier is 1145s.
Mm-hmm.
I stay away from that. I don't think that for me and the kind of shooter I am and my build and my technique, I don't think there's an appreciable difference between 1145s and 1245s that make me faster, that make me think like, I better get these 1145s.
Mm-hmm.
Do you?
I really liked the 1145s back in the day. That was my go-to back in the day. When I was
2 years ago.
Yeah, when I was shooting limited and tack, I was 1145s was my go-to. I don't know, I just liked them. Mm-hmm. My gun ran them. Kind of coming from that pistol philosophy of like, well, if my gun runs the lighter load, I'm gonna use the lighter load.
Yeah, so I like that, but I also like to watch my targets fall decisively. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like 1200 was the best, but for some reason, finding 1200 in double A's is difficult. Mm-hmm. So that's why I shoot 1250s, because those are easier to find.
Yep.
And dude, I'm not above getting 1300s. I don't care. I got 1290s in my truck right now. I'll shoot them tomorrow. Yep. Just watch.
Yeah, those are what I get now because I shoot a Vepr. But like that was the other thing too. Like back in the day, because Jake and Nathan Payne, who I was shooting with a lot, they would always give me a hard time because I was usually choked tighter than them. They were usually IC. I was usually light mod.
Well, that explains why, because I was wondering about the light mod. I'm like, it seems like Adam would run a more open choke. Okay, well, that makes sense then.
Well, I actually tend to be a little bit tighter.
Okay.
Because I want it to fall.
Mm-hmm. See, I do too. I don't want there to be any sort of like decisive. I don't want to be in the middle of the stage winging 4 rounds at something that's not falling and like think like, how could I possibly get closer to that?
Yep. But like at the same time, so I was shooting a 24-inch barrel, the light mod 1145s. They were shooting 26, 28-inch barrels with ICs, and they were shooting 13s and 1350s. Essentially, we were probably shooting the same thing.
Yeah.
We just got at it a different way.
Interesting.
And so that's part of when you're taking, so you're taking advice from somebody on choke, and
consider the advice.
consider the advice. Not that they're giving you bad advice. They're probably telling you what they're doing, but what they're doing might not be apples to apples with what you're doing. So having an understanding of what your gun does is always going to be a safer play than crowdsourcing information.
Right.
And
if they say hoser, politely thank them and move on to the next person.
yes.
Just kidding, Susan. People get real weird about their chokes, I found out.
Oh yeah. And again, we're taking very firm opinions.
Yeah.
And thousandths of an inch.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah. It's the difference
Yeah,
between that
that's a good
hoser and like a quote unquote IC or a cylinder.
Yeah, and honestly,
Probably
like,
pretty slight.
I would like to, grab a set, not to own, but to measure. Just bust the calipers out and see. Just because I do hang with people that have those chokes.
Yep.
They already have their investment. They're not going to change them
Yep.
because of me and my complaints. So
And
it would be nice to know, like, okay, well, if Darren's going to be shooting a hoser on this one, what is the actual equivalent?
right. And that's not to say that it's snake oil either.
No.
And
No,
you
not
could
at
even
all.
go further into the weeds. We could talk about forcing cone and things like that. So like they probably put a lot of thought into those two sizes, but the difference between those
They probably did some sort of statistical analysis, like what are the most popular or the most frequently used chokes in 3-gun. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I mean, the differences between those are very slight. And then something you were talking about earlier in the episode, the difference between each set of sizes in choke when we're talking about, if we're talking about conventional tube length guns, I would really challenge somebody to be able to tell me the difference between a shot that was absolutely an IC shot and absolutely not a light mod or not a cylinder.
Yes. So excuse me, I totally agree on that one. It is difficult to tell. There is a lot of subjectivity to what we're figuring out here. As far as like the names of the chokes and everything, they don't make any sense.
Absolutely not.
There's and that's why I joked with Lan about doing like a metric choke system. But what I did and what you can do yourself is I printed out a choke chart. Don't recall where I got it. It's probably on Wikipedia or something like that. But it just tells you where chokes start and where they end as far as like constriction goes. And a lot of times there are ones in there that you don't have or don't need, or ones that we've never even heard of in 3-gun, and there's like
light full.
Yeah, there's some wildcat ones or something like a light full. So maybe make your own spreadsheet and eliminate those, but make a little card to keep it with you in your shooter's bag. So like I have an IC, right? And I don't properly have the knowledge to know the name of the choke I need, but I know I need a tighter one.
Right.
Pull that little card out. And that it does two things. It gives you the answer you need, and then it helps you save face, because nobody likes to be the ignorant one on the range, So if you're embarrassed to ask, if it's going to keep you from asking because you don't know what the names are, and you don't have anyone around you that can guide you through that process, just print out the little choke thing and bring it with you. So don't have any shame on that one.
Right. And I would say also, like, you can pretty comfortably, it's hard to decide one size to like one incremental step between one choke and another. It's pretty easy if you skip sizes, though. Like,
yes.
It's pretty just easy to say that, yes, this is an improved cylinder shot and not a modified shot.
Correct. Yeah. So you're familiar with this because we've talked about it before, and I've said this on the podcast, but the school of choking that I subscribe to is what Mark Yackley told me years ago, Generation 3-gun. He says, everyone has this palette of chokes to choose from, and they waffle on which one to go through that's like one step up. It's like why I joke that light mod is for people can't make a decision. And he says, I have a mod, an IC, and I want to say it was a skeet. I don't recall. He's like, I have not near. I have a tight pattern, I have an open pattern, and I have a way open pattern. He's like, what do I need for this? Do I need a tight pattern? Do I need an open pattern? Or do I just need a normal one? And so IC is the norm,
Mm-hmm.
And then does it need to be tight or does it need to be open?
Mm-hmm.
So that simplifies everything, right?
Yep.
It just takes it down to those 3 choices.
Yeah. And especially if you're new in the sport or you're still acquiring gear and deciding like what you need and what's nice.
Yeah, or if you just only have the factory chokes that it came with.
Yeah, you
can
only
still
have the
get by
factory.
with those.
Yeah. Yep. Or if
I
you're
do.
if you're buying chokes, like if you're trying to buy the extended ones or something like that, like I kind of accept one as a baseline. Pick IC or light mod, whichever it is, or whatever one's comfortable for you in your area, and then just start skipping every other size.
Yeah.
Or maybe every 2 sizes or something like that. And that's ultimately what I did. I had one way on the open spectrum, I had one on the pretty tight spectrum, and I had one in the middle. And
if you're buying gear like incrementally, like that's one of the reasons I really like building AR-15s.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have parts of 3 builds going on right now. It's fun, because you can do it one piece at a time, like Johnny Cash.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to do that with your chokes, then choose your middle ground.
Yeah.
Your light mod or your IC, whichever you like. Buy that one.
Mm-hmm.
Next month or next 2 months or whatever it is, when you've replenished the cash supply, go buy the tightest one you think that you'll need, or talk to your buddies and say, what's the tightest choke you've ever used in the areas that we shoot, the major matches that we shoot or the club matches that we shoot, whatever it is for you in your situation, buy that choke. So now you've got an IC and a mod in the nice knurled chokes that you don't need the little tool to get out and bangs into your magazine tube. And then, a couple months down the road, get your open.
Yep.
Your open choke, which is going to be your cylinder, your skeet, your diffusion, whatever it is you decide is the one for you. And then if you think you need to after that, fill in.
Yep. And that's absolutely what I did. For a long time, all I had
you go.
was diffusion, light mod, improved mod. And a few years ago, I just kind of felt myself wanting for something in between, because diffusion can be kind of a spooky choke.
Yeah.
If you're shooting it at steel. So I was always like, well, I want something more open, but I don't want to go full diffusion.
Yeah.
So I ended up with a skeet.
And I think that is a reasonable choke to make on your open end, a skeet, because it's very open, but it's not rifled, so it's not going to give you the spooky things you're talking about, right?
Just a little bit of a crimp to get a little bit of consistency. And then just in case somebody's just really frustrated with us using all the names, so like the common,
look it up, Wikipedia.
The common constrictions, we're starting at the most open. So the rifled one that spins the wad, that's diffusion. Cylinder essentially is no choke, so it's just a
Smooth bore.
Yeah, smooth bore, if you will. And then from here, we're starting to constrict a little bit. So from cylinder, it goes skeet, improved cylinder, light mod, improved mod, full, and then there's crazy turkey chokes.
Yeah.
There's a few other, specialty sizes, and they get light full and things like that.
So I know someone's screaming at the radio like, "Oh, my grandpa had a blah blah blah."
Right.
Yeah. You can cut this pie infinitely. It's still a pie, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's still bookends.
Yeah. If you want to be the sipper of cognac in the crowd full of beer drinkers, just whip out your light full.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you want to go to thousandths of an inch on your constriction or 10,000ths of an inch on your constriction?
Do you not have one of these?
Oh, you don't have a light full?
But
this is definitely a light full stage. Everybody, I'm putting in my light full.
Yeah, light skeet, modified skeet. So essentially, to decipher it a little bit, the macro sizes are cylinder, modified, and full.
Yep.
And then, generally speaking, the improved, prefix denotes a choke that is slightly more open than the base word. Improved means it's slightly tighter than the base word. Light mod is slightly more open.
You just said the same thing.
Oh, did
you
I?
said improved and improved.
Oh, okay. So modified is in the middle. A
Right.
light mod is slightly more open
Okay.
than a modified. An improved mod is slightly tighter
There we go.
than a modified.
Okay.
So hopefully that helps you decipher it a little bit.
That does help a lot. And then just knowing those 3 things will help you get through it, which is interesting because the mod is the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mod in 3-gun is tight.
Mod's pretty. That's when people are whipping out their mod chokes. That's when they're like, man, we need to tighten this up a little bit.
Yeah, I really need to knock this down, or I really need to tighten up my pattern.
Yeah. And I think of modified a little bit more as I need to tighten it up a little bit. Like when I in my mind, when I really need to tighten, I'm thinking improved mod or full.
Yeah. Well, so if I had a full choke, I would probably think differently.
Mm-hmm. But vast majority of the time, and most of the people are not wrong, most of the time, improved cylinder or light mod is a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the choice, but it's a pretty good choice. So you're probably going to be somewhere in there. And then there's times where it's definitely a good idea to be more open.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had a guy on our squad that I'm not sure of his we had lunch with him today.
Mm-hmm.
So he's shooting a Breda B12i, and he on one stage you started off with 3 birdshot, and then you went to 4 slugs, and then from there it was optional. And so he did it backwards. He did the slugs first and the birdshot, which I like to go least damage to most damage. You know, like if I shoot a slug on that birdshot target, that's going to be a bad thing. But if I shoot birdshot on that slug target, it's not going to be a bad thing. So anyway, that's just a sidetrack. But so he went the other way. He went slug, 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 and then turned the birdshot and was just like wham, wham, wham. Where the RO is like, we're going to need to check those targets. And it was fine. He's just shooting a mod. We're like, hey, what choke you got in there, mod? And the RO was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, like he was significantly overchoked for that. Did he knock him over? Absolutely. Was it decisive? Absolutely. You know,
Yep.
I don't think it held him back any. However, he was not getting any doubles on a lot of the arrays. You know, so that's part of the strategy of the game, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And here at this match, which is ironic that this, I was just thinking as we're talking here, it's funny that this is a traditional, but all the shotgun targets are really close.
Not necessarily.
All the targets I've shot so far are really close.
I've used most of my chokes. And I have a full set.
Well, you have 14.5-inch barrel too.
Right. But I've used the full spectrum of chokes at this match.
Yeah, see, I've just done IC the whole time.
But I've also shot a full flat of shot shells and
people are right.
Pistol shooting a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point because there definitely are targets that are really far away that could be shotgun targets. But given the option, it's like, well, I got 21 tries or I got 12 tries.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for deciphering deciphering the lingo, like terms that won't really get anyone's attention, improved cylinder, modified, light mod. When people say, well, I'm using diffusion, people that makes, oh really? Or I'm using improved mod, or I'm using full. People are like, oh, it's that kind of party now. You know, so there's, you know, that's kind of the spectrum of like, you know, chokes that will like get people's, like when you're pulling out a full choke, you'll like get people's attention.
Yeah, and you almost have to explain yourself.
Everyone will be like, where, you know, oh, this is a full choke stage. Well, where did I put that? You know.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have a full, dude. Can I borrow your choke?
Yep. And then one more thing before we wrap it up, slugs. Okay, this whole thing with slugs through the chokes and whatnot.
Chokes do change the point of impact of your slugs.
Absolutely.
All depends on how much.
Yep. For the most part, you can shoot slugs through pretty much any of the chokes that we're talking about. If you're worried about it, cut a slug apart and push it through the tube.
That's a good point.
If it fits through the tube, you can shoot it through there. But I think it's a lot of it is maybe out of date or old wives' tale like information. Like in the 60s and 70s, it probably wasn't a good idea to shoot slugs through full choked fixed barrels.
Well, and it's very possible with the manufacturing tolerances, you know, that have tightened in the last 70 years that you were just talking about. Not only have slugs become more consistent, but you know, from like tolerances in casting versus swaging, but chokes are too. You know.
Yeah. So I mean, I shoot slugs through improved modified chokes. I've done it several times and wouldn't hesitate to do it again. I have done this full too.
Nice.
It's pretty rare the stage that you will need to use a full choke and shoot a slug.
Yes. I was not aware of this this thing about the modified choke and slugs until I did it, and someone was like, "Oh, what choke did you have?" I'm like, "Blah blah blah." Well, you shot slugs through that? I'm like, should I not?
Yeah.
Like people are. Yes, you should respect firearms. Yes, you should respect slugs. Yes, you should respect all these things. It's a dangerous game that we're playing. But people are like way too cautious, especially on the club level side, of trying new things and trying things and testing things.
Yeah.
Like you said, all the people that tell me not to throw a slug through my mod. Have you ever pushed a slug through a mod?
Yeah, exactly.
Manually?
Now, if I were picking a choke to go deer hunting with and shoot slug, no, probably wouldn't pick a full choke.
Yeah.
It's not going to fly the best.
No.
Honestly, the best the best groups we get with slugs, that in my experience, guns that I have and have tested, usually it's a light mod or an IC, something with a little bit of constriction. Tends to have the better results, but each gun's an individual. Certainly shotguns, because those barrels are far more variable than rifle barrels are.
They're more pipe than tube.
Yes.
And that's why they have gauges.
Yes. So would shooting a slug through an IM be my first choice if I was going to shoot slugs? Nope. But if a stage lays out that I need an IM choke and I also happen to need to shoot a slug, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
So, but if you're concerned, verify these things for yourself. Just saying, in my experience with my guns, that has been my experience thus far, and it could change at any moment. But currently, that has been my experience.
And as always, test everything. Like you have homework now. We told you how to become one with your shotgun.
Yep.
So,
like I said, I don't have all the answers to these things. These are questions that I have, and these are things that I'm trying to learn about my systems too. And I just see so much of this bad information getting passed around. Like, I just wanted to maybe reframe the context of the application for you in hopes that, listeners out there will go out and maybe get some of this information and decide some of these things from a position of knowledge, and that'll probably improve your match performance.
100%. Great topic. I think a lot of times we get like a lot of rules of thumb in 3-gun or in practical shooting in general, and instead of testing them, people take that as gospel and then they regurgitate that rule of thumb. For example, in a lot of the 3-gun groups, I see a lot of people commenting on firm stances of this is how it should be or this is how it is or whatever, and I think like, God, who the hell are you? I've never heard of you before. I'll look people up in practice score all the time. Get out the competitor app, put your name in there, and bro, if you only shot 2 club matches last year, like maybe you should not be giving advice on chokes, So not
to say like to suppress yourself, but like
no,
but you're probably in the position where you should be listening more than talking.
Correct. Yes, that is what I was getting at. And so, if you do have friends in the sport that can help you through it, listen to their advice, but test that too. We're your friends. Listen to our advice, but test it for yourself. Put it into action, see what you come up with, because it definitely could be different based on your particular situation.
That's all I have to say about that.
Thank God. Let's go to bed. Not let's go to bed. You go away, and then I'm going to go to bed.
Right. Yeah, Dave's going to be asleep before I get to my bed.
Pretty much. Before you hit the car, I'll be sleeping. All right, man. Last day of UML Traditional Nationals tomorrow. Let's finish strong. Let's get a little
last day of the 2019 season for us.
Yeah, for me too.
Yep.
Only club matches from here on out.
Yep. I think I'm leaving my shotgun behind to get some more like dissident goodies put on it, but maybe we'll have to talk about that some other time.
Nice. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging in with us, and choke wisely and test everything.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Three Gun Show. If you like this type of content, you can support us on a monthly basis for as little as $5 by subscribing on Patreon at threegunshow.com/Patreon, Patreon. You can also give your business to the companies that support the Three Gun Show, including Vortex Optics, IWI, and JP Rifles. Until next week, I'm Dave Hartman, and I'll see you on the range.